Hi, Maria. Thanks for being here.
Hi,
Oh,
thank you for
yeah.
having me, Holly.
Yes, definitely. So today I wanted to talk with you a little bit about how you ended up in Orange County. So I've been talking to a lot of people about what brought them here because, of course, we have quite the melting pot of people that are not from here and have chosen to make it their home for one reason or another. I myself am not from Orange County, so I love hearing the stories. And so I hear you have an interesting one and I want to hear more about it.
Well, thank you, and again, thank you for having me. And if I remember correctly, you at some point you were in Boston, right?
Yeah, I went to college there.
Yeah, I've never made it to Boston. I made it through many parts of the world, but never made it to Boston. But to answer your question, I came from. My name is Maria Lupita, and I was born in Mexico. And I came. I'm a marketer. I love marketing, but I ended up here in Orange County because I was going to marry my future ex-husband. So obviously, he became an actual ex-husband. And then I stayed because I discovered Laguna Beach, which is the image that is behind me. And I may not have kept the husband, but I fell in love with Laguna Beach and all things Laguna, and it was just like I'm like I finally have found my home. Before I came to California, and no offense to including myself, not being from California, I used to think that California was just stupid. It's like who would volunteer to pay more for everything, to pay more for housing, when you can live in Texas or in any other place and get a much better house, you being in real estate and being an expert. To me, it was just so illogical. And anytime that somebody talked about California, I was just like so turned off. But then when I met my future ex-husband, he introduced me to it, and the way that he would talk about it, he is a massive entertainer. He loves making people happy and making people feel entertained and making people feel like you're this big, this amazing thing. So when he brought me here, I just remember driving on Broadway, onto Broadway, I mean onto into the canyon and then onto Broadway, and all of a sudden it opens up. You come through all these hills and all of a sudden you enter the ocean. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I fell in love.
That is really cool. And then what would you say were some of the big differences from what you were used to?
Well, the biggest differences was that here I stopped longing or wanting to have a big house.
Mhm.
Whereas in Texas, that's where I moved from. It was always the bigger the better house, but you either get a bigger house or there's something wrong. Whereas in California, it's about more living out. I mean, for me, it's living outside, going hiking, going walking on the beach. And it's just like you don't need to travel, you're already in the destination spot.
What do you like about Aliso Viejo? What do you like? Because South County is a very popular destination for people too.
For me, Aliso Viejo it's so quiet and it's such a hidden gem. And I'm grateful that it's a hidden gem because hardly anybody knows, how beautiful and how peaceful, but how quiet it is. And we are filled with parks, filled with hike. I mean, right behind where I live, it's in the corner of all the three cities that I mentioned. There's this beautiful hiking Barber's Lake that you can hike to. And we have, for people like you that love tennis, there's tennis places, there's pickleball for those that make it to the other side of tennis. And there's all these places that people wouldn't even know unless you happen to come across them.
Have you recruited anybody to move here? Like have friends, family, or do they come visit and love what you have going on? I'm just curious, like how people have taken to your new lifestyle here in Southern California, or do they think it's like weird here too, like you first thought it might be?
I think most people, they, especially with how the economy is today,
Mm,
um, they just don't see themselves as they could even possibly afford it.
yeah.
Because they just see it as so uber expensive, especially if you compare it to El Paso, Texas, or um Fort Worth, Dallas. I mean, over there you can get, for what I pay here, you
Yeah.
can get a beautiful home. uh so I think pricing wise it makes it tough for people to want to be here.
Yeah.
but they love visiting. They,
Well,
it's a beautiful destination. It's a beautiful place to come to. But a lot of people, that's their dream. Like a lot of people, because as a digital marketer and what I do for a living, I'm constantly talking to people, and what I get to do, that's what their dream is.
You are a transplant as well. Where did you move from?
I moved from Sandy, Utah, which is a suburb outside of Salt Lake,
Okay, and how long have you been in Southern California?
since 1990
Okay.
for
What
34 years, something like that.
Yeah, that's a good long time. And
Yeah.
I wanted to know what brought you here. What's your story?
Well, my sister was living here with her husband over in Laguna Niguel, and um, I was I was 28 at the time, and I really wanted to go back to college. I really, really wanted to go back. I did it 1 year when I was 18, and then dropped out. And at that time, Utah didn't have any community colleges. They had a tech school and they had universities. They didn't have any junior colleges or community colleges, and it was too expensive. And so I just thought, I'm going to change my life. Because I knew how cheap it was for education here. And so I moved here. My brother-in-law had got me a job working for his brother, or his dad, sorry. And within a year, I was at the community college and fulfilled my goal in 1996. And yeah, pretty almost debt free, not quite debt free. The cost of living here is awful. It's awful, but I talked to my family in Utah, and the cost of living there is really awful right now too. And then I talked to my friends who just moved to Tennessee, and they're paying more than I am in rent.
Oh
So
my God.
I'm like, you're living in Tennessee and it's more expensive.
Oh wow.
What I like about Costa Mesa is it's so centrally located.
Mhm.
Like, we live right off the 55. It is so easy for people to get here.
Yeah.
Just jump on the freeway, it's so easy. We're so close to the beach. Like it's really close. People don't think about it. I'm like, I think we're 4 miles from the beach. We live right down the street from Triangle Square. So we go to the movies there, all the time.
what is different for you from Pennsylvania? Like, obviously, they're very different areas. How is it different to you here?
So I think when people in Costa Mesa always ask me, they're like, "Oh, how is it different?" I normally tend to gravitate towards talking about the weather because that's the most obvious difference. Is just that I always say, I'm like, the weather isn't that different. Like right now we're in November. It's a little chilly, so it's how fall would be back home, maybe not as cold. But the one time of year that I think every East Coaster can relate to is between January and April, May. So we get a little bit of coldness, a little bit of rain in the winter, but then we go back to the warmth. It's really nice. And I think it really, I've noticed a definite change in just my mental health with it. It used to be so depressing to have to go through such a long winter. I will say. One of the biggest things I saw when I moved here was that there's just kids at the park all the time. So they have really great parks on the East Coast. Like where I lived in Pennsylvania, we were within walking distance to this one really great park from our home. And I used to walk there with my son all the time. There would never be any kids. All the time he'd be like, "Do you think I'm gonna see someone from school, or do you think I'm gonna see a kid there?" And it would always just be us.
What are some of your favorite parks? Because you have kids, so you're probably at the parks quite a bit.
Yeah, so I love, I'm at Fairview. I'm actually parked at Fairview Park right now. I come here 2 to 3 times a week after I got my son at school just for myself to go running or walking. But he likes Fairview Park. We also like going to, we live over by Lions Park with the big airplane.
Yeah.
So we love that. We love Treewinkle Park with the ducks and the squirrels.
How is the sense of community there different than how it is here?
I just love about Jersey. And so moving out here to Costa Mesa, when people, I'm not familiar with all the towns, but when you talk to people, they're not saying they're from a suburb of LA. They're saying I'm from Costa Mesa, or I'm from of like I'm from Irvine or I'm from another place like that. Whereas when I lived in Pennsylvania, I feel like a lot of people, when they're describing it to an outsider, they're just like, oh yeah, I live outside of Philly.